shy girl left an apology note on a $5 million scratched car, unaware it belonged to Vampire King. The rain fell gently over the quiet streets of Eldoria, turning the cobblestones into a mirror of the night sky. Lanterns flickered, casting small pools of golden light over puddles, and the city seemed to hold its breath under the weight of darkness. People hurried past, heads bowed and coats pulled tight, unaware of the quiet drama unfolding in a shadowed alley. Elara walked slowly, her small bag clutched tightly to her chest. Her shoes made soft splashes in the rain, but she barely noticed. Her thoughts were tangled in worry, as they often were. She had spent the day at the market, buying small supplies for her grandmother, and now, soaked and tired, she was hurrying home. Her eyes caught a sleek shape parked at the edge of the alley. A black car, its surface dark as midnight and polished so perfectly it almost seemed unreal, gleamed under the rain. Elara's heart skipped a beat. She had never seen such a car before. It looked like something from a storybook, a car made for kings or heroes, not ordinary people like her. Then her heel caught on the curb, and she stumbled forward. The sound of metal scraping against metal made her stomach twist. She froze. No, 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 she whispered, staring in horror at a long scratch running across the car's door. Her hands shook as she stepped back. She had no money to pay for this. No one in her family could afford such a luxury. Panic filled her chest. She had to do something, but the rain was cold, and her mind raced too fast to think clearly. After a long, trembling moment, she tore a piece of paper from her notebook.
With clumsy handwriting, she scribbled an apology. "I am so sorry for scratching your car. I did not mean to."
Please, forgive me. She pressed it under the windshield wiper, her fingers freezing from the cold, and ran. Her heart pounded, and she felt as if every eye in the city could see her shame, even though the streets were empty. Far away, in a high tower overlooking the city, King Draven sensed the disturbance. Best. He had been awake for centuries, moving through nights and shadows with a calmness that mortals could not understand. The car belonged to him, and he had parked it for reasons of secrecy. The scratch should have been an annoyance, but the note caught his attention. Draven approached the car silently, stepping through the puddles with a predator's grace. He read the note slowly, his dark eyes narrowing, not with anger, but with a spark of curiosity. The handwriting was simple, almost childlike, yet it carried a sincerity that he could feel deep in his chest, a place long untouched by emotion. He smiled faintly, a movement so rare it might have seemed impossible to anyone who had known him. He did not hunt her, not yet.
Instead, he observed, interested in the girl who had dared to touch something that belonged to a king.
Elara reached her small apartment on the edge of the city, soaked to the bone. She locked the door behind her, leaning against it, as if it might protect her from the consequences she feared were coming. But she didn't know that her small act of honesty had already drawn the attention of someone immortal, someone far beyond the reach of ordinary fear. The next morning, Elara awoke to find a black envelope slipped under her door. She froze. The handwriting on it was unfamiliar, precise and commanding. Trembling, she opened it and found a single line inside. "Meet me, midnight, path, alley, by the fountain." Her stomach twisted. Who would want to meet her there? She thought of the scratched car, the note she had left, and the impossibility of what was about to happen. But before fear could take hold, a strange curiosity began to stir. a whisper in her mind that she could not ignore. Night came slowly, wrapping the city in shadows. Elara wrapped herself in a thick cloak and made her way to the alley, every step echoing in the empty streets. Her heart beat so loudly she was sure it would give her away. The fountain gleamed under the moonlight, water dancing like silver fire. And then she saw him. He stepped from the shadows, tall and impossibly elegant, dressed in black that seemed to swallow the light around him. Bah. His hair was dark as midnight, eyes sharper than any mortal's could be. He moved with the quiet power of a predator, yet there was a stillness to him that made the world seem slower, smaller, more fragile. Elara wanted to run. She wanted to apologize again, but his gaze held her in place. There was danger in it, yes, but also something else. Something like fascination. "Why?" he asked, his voice low, smooth, and commanding, yet there was a note of curiosity in it that made her shiver. I didn't mean to. I'm so sorry." She stammered, clutching her cloak. "Bess, it was an accident! I didn't!" He raised a hand, stopping her before she could continue. "I am not angry," he said simply. "Most people would fear me or flee. You left a note." His eyes lingered on her face. "Why?" Elara blinked. I thought it was the right thing to do. I wanted to be honest." A long silence stretched between them. The rain had stopped, and the fountain whispered quietly. Draven studied her, noting the small courage it took to admit a mistake, the gentle honesty that radiated from her, despite fear. Few had ever shown him such transparency. Most bent before him in fear, or whispered lies to survive. "Bah, you are unusual," he said at last. "Few humans would admit fault so plainly."
"Most would run and hope to be forgotten."
Elara's cheeks warmed. I guess I just believe in doing the right thing. Draven tilted his head, intrigued.
"The right thing," he repeated, as if tasting the words for the first time. "Curious." He studied her for a long moment. "You will come with me. There is a place you must see." I don't know."
"You can," he interrupted softly, though every word was filled with authority. "And you will." Fear and fascination warred inside her, but something in his presence made her nod, almost against her will.
He led her through darkened streets, and as they walked, the air seemed to shift. Shadows bent subtly toward him, and Elara felt the pulse of an ancient power she could not name. Base. Finally, they reached the edge of the city where a massive castle rose from jagged cliffs. Its towers pierced the clouds, black stone glistening wet with rain, and windows glimmered with candlelight like distant stars. The gates opened as if by magic, and Draven entered, with Elara following hesitantly behind. Inside the castle was a labyrinth of corridors, grand halls, and chambers filled with relics of a long and powerful history. Every surface spoke of kings, battles, and bloodlines that had shaped the world. Elara's heart pounded in awe and fear, but also in strange anticipation. He stopped in a grand hall, tall ceilings arching like the ribs of some great beast. The air was cool, scented faintly with incense and old stone, bracy. "This is my home," he said simply. "And soon it will be your responsibility to walk these halls safely. You are now under my watch." Elara swallowed hard. Bess, under your watch?" she asked, voice barely a whisper. "Yes," he replied. "You trespassed in a world most humans cannot see. You did not know, yet you acted with honesty."
That makes you, interesting.
"You will stay, for now." Her mind reeled, trying to understand the impossible. A part of her screamed to run, yet another part was captivated by him. The king, the shadow, the mystery who held the night in his hands. Raven studied her silently, noting the flicker of courage in her eyes, the soft tension in her hands, the way she tried to make herself small in the vastness of the castle. He did not need words to know that she was different from all the others he had seen. Bets. She was not afraid in the wrong way. She was afraid and yet honest, and that combination was rare. The night stretched on, filled with unspoken thoughts. Elara found herself sitting quietly in a chamber, the hum of magic in the walls making her skin prickle. Outside, the city slept, unaware that a new story was beginning in its shadows, and somewhere deep inside him Draven felt a sensation he had not experienced in centuries, a pull towards something fragile yet strong, human yet extraordinary, a feeling that whispered of beginnings, of change, and of a path that could alter both their lives forever. He did not speak it aloud. For now, it was enough that she was here, that she had left the note, and that the night had brought them together. But as the candle flickered, casting long shadows across the hall, he knew one truth. This small, frightened girl had unknowingly stepped into a world of darkness, power, and fate. "And nothing, neither human fear nor immortal might, would ever be the same again!" The next morning, sunlight struggled to pierce the high towers of Draven's castle. Its rays fell like thin golden threads across cold stone, illuminating dust particles that danced in the silence. Elara woke in a guest chamber larger than her entire home. A bed was soft, the blankets warm, and for a moment she allowed herself to breathe, to feel safe. But the walls whispered power. The room smelled faintly of incense and old books, and the shadows seemed deeper than they should have been. But she shivered despite the warmth. "Enter," she called, her voice small, though her heart had begun to steady. The door opened and Draven stepped in. His presence filled the room without effort, as if the air itself obeyed him. He carried no weapon, he never needed one. His black coat hung straight from his shoulders, and his dark hair fell across his forehead, catching the morning light in strange silver threads. "You slept well," he said, his voice calm, almost casual, but there was a subtle weight to it, a reminder that he ruled more than just a room. He ruled fear, desire, and obedience. Elara nodded, unsure how to respond. I think so. Thank you."
Draven's gaze softened briefly, enough for her to notice, and then hardened again as he surveyed the chamber.
"Today you will see the world in which you now walk. It is not forgiving. It is not gentle. But it is necessary that you understand it if you are to remain here." Elara's stomach tightened. I want to understand." "Good," he said. "Follow me." They walked through halls lined with statues that seemed almost alive. Shadows shifted in corners, moving like slow, watchful animals. Draven led her to a grand hall where sunlight pooled in patterns across the marble floor. Tall windows offered a view of the city below, the streets she had known from a simpler life now appearing tiny and fragile. "This castle has existed for centuries," Draven began, his voice echoing softly in the chamber. "Every stone has been laid by my ancestors. Every shadow you see has been shaped by those who served me before. You are now part of this history, whether you wish it or not." Vast. Elara looked around in awe. She had never imagined a place so vast, so filled with power. The air itself seemed heavy with secrets. "Why me?" she asked quietly, the question escaping before she could stop it. Desperado. Draven paused, his gaze meeting hers. "Because you are honest, Bess. Because you have courage, however small it may seem to you. Most humans would flee or lie to protect themselves. Bow. You admit your mistakes. That makes you rare. That makes you interesting." But Elara blushed and looked away, unsure how to react to such praise. She had never been called interesting in her life. "Interesting," Draven repeated almost to himself. A curious word for someone so fragile. The only sound was the faint ripple of water from a fountain below and the slow tick of a distant clock. Elara sensed even then that the castle was alive in ways she could not yet understand, that shadows moved not merely with the wind but with purpose. Draven led her to the dining hall, where long tables were set with fine silverware and dark, polished wood. Servants moved silently, unseen yet precise, carrying trays with food that smelled rich and unfamiliar. "Biz, you will eat," Draven said. "You cannot survive in this place without strength." Elara nodded. She had no appetite, not with her nerves twisting in knots, but she obeyed. The food was strange, yet nourishing, and as she ate, Draven studied her quietly from across the table.
"You are learning quickly," he remarked finally, his voice low. "Many fail the first night."
Breaths. "Many are too afraid to even look at what lies before them. You do not."
Bay.
Elara's hands trembled slightly. "I am afraid," she admitted.
I don't want to fail." Draven's eyes softened. "Fear is not a weakness. Fear is a guide. Those who ignore it are destroyed by it. You, however, acknowledge it. That is why you may survive here." Her chest tightened. She felt small beneath his gaze, yet somehow she did not feel crushed. Bay. His words carried authority, yes, but also a strange comfort. After breakfast, he led her to the outer balcony. From there, the city seemed endless, a web of streets and towers stretching into the horizon. The air smelled of rain, wet stone, and distant fires. "Here," he said, "is where you must begin to learn the rules of power." Elara's brow furrowed. "Rules?" Draven's lips curved slightly. "Bah. Yes, everyone speaks it, yet few understand it. To live here, you must learn to read it, to feel it, and to respect it." Breath. He gestured toward the city. Those below in their houses and alleys, they do not see the struggles that occur here. But their lives are shaped by them nonetheless. Every decision, every whisper, every shadow, it matters. You are now part of that balance, whether you realize it or not. Elara swallowed, trying to take in the enormity of what he was saying. Her small, quiet life seemed so distant now, almost insignificant. Yet, at the same time, she felt a strange thrill, a pull toward a world she had never known. Days passed, each filled with lessons that tested her courage, patience, and heart. She learned the names of the courtiers, the rules of etiquette, the subtle gestures that could mean loyalty or betrayal. She observed the servants and guards, noting the tension that ran like a silent river through the castle. Draven watched her closely, often silently, sometimes speaking with her in cryptic phrases designed to make her think. "Courage is not shown in strength alone," he told her one afternoon. "It is shown in small choices." Choices most would ignore. Choices that could save a life or doom one. Elara felt the weight of his words. In every corner of the castle, danger seemed to lurk, not always from the shadows, but from the ambitions of those who sought to control the king or his influence. She realized quickly that even a single misstep could cost her dearly. Despite the tension, she could not deny the fascination she felt for Draven. He was terrifying. Yes, immortal, powerful, and commanding, but also human in ways that were subtle and strange.
When he allowed a small smile or spoke a kind word, it felt like the sun breaking through clouds after a storm.
And yet, she sensed the walls he had built around himself. There was sorrow in his eyes, a history of loss and solitude. Sometimes when he was not speaking, she saw him staring at the distant horizon, as if waiting for someone, or something, that would never return. One evening, as they walked through the moonlit gardens, Elara dared to speak. "Do you ever get lonely?" she asked, her voice soft. Draven did not answer immediately. He stopped beneath a fountain, water sparkling under the moonlight.
Lonely, he repeated, his voice distant.
I have existed for centuries. I have watched kingdoms rise and fall.
I have known friends, allies, enemies, but not a companion who understands the weight of eternity. That is a solitude few can imagine. Bess. Elara swallowed. I
can imagine. I know what it is to feel small in a world too big for you.
Draven's eyes softened, and for a moment the distance between them seemed smaller. "Perhaps," he said almost to himself, "there is more to you than I first believed." The air between them carried an unspoken tension, a mixture of curiosity, fear, and an attraction neither fully understood. Elara felt herself drawn to him, not merely as a king or a being of power, but as a person who had known sorrow and could still command the world. Their moments together were fragile, fleeting, and charged with emotion. But she learned to read his moods, the smallest gesture, the tilt of his head, the quiet pause before words. Each day brought new lessons not just in power, but in patience, understanding, and the subtle dance of trust. But danger was never far. Whispers reached her even in the castle's walls, rumors of a curse tied to Draven's bloodline, threats from enemies who coveted his power, and shadows that moved with intent.
Elara realized that her presence, however innocent, might draw attention she could not escape.
One night, while she studied in her chamber, a servant knocked quietly and handed her a sealed note. The wax bore Draven's emblem. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The words inside were simple, yet heavy. "Meet me in the East Tower at midnight."
You must see what the shadows hide.
Bess, she felt fear, yes, but also an irresistible pull toward the unknown. She knew deep down that this step could change everything. As the castle slept, she prepared herself. Cloaked in the shadows, she moved silently through the corridors, guided by a mix of courage and curiosity. Brave. The East Tower loomed above, tall and dark, a place she had not yet seen. When she reached the top, Draven was already there, standing before a window that overlooked the city. Moonlight fell on him silver and pale, highlighting the sharp planes of his face. He did not turn as she entered. "The shadows hide much," he said quietly. "And tonight you will see them." You will learn that power is not always obvious, that fear is not always what it seems, and that even in darkness, choices matter. Elora stepped closer, her heart pounding. Psst. I am ready, she whispered. Draven finally turned, his eyes locking on hers. Then watch closely and remember everything. The world outside may not forgive mistakes, but within these walls there is always a chance to choose differently, to grow, to survive, to become something more than you ever imagined. Bay. The wind howled outside, carrying the scent of rain and distant fires. The East Tower seemed to hold 1,000 secrets, and as Alara looked at Draven, she realized that she had crossed a threshold. There was no turning back now. The castle was quiet that night, yet it did not feel empty. Shadows clung to the walls like living things, shifting and murmuring with a presence only Draven could sense. Elora followed him through corridors lit by flickering torches, the echo of their footsteps sharp against the stone. Every corner of the castle seemed to whisper secrets, some old, some dangerous, and Elara's heart beat faster with every step. You must understand something, Draven said, his voice low, almost a growl. Power is not always visible, and threats are not always obvious. There are forces in this world older than kings, older than kingdoms, forces that hunger without reason. One such force stirs now, and you must learn to see it.
Elara swallowed hard, trying to steady her nerves.
A force? She asked. Psst. What does it want? Draven's gaze was fixed ahead, sharp and distant. It wants what it has always wanted. Control. Breath. Death. Fear. Bay. And sometimes, the undoing of those who are most alive.
He stopped at a doorway leading to the East Tower's inner chamber, a place she had not entered before. The air was thick, heavy with a scent of something metallic and old.
This is where the shadows grow strong, where the curse hides.
Bears. You must see it for yourself if you are to survive here. The room was vast, circular, and cold.
Bay. Stone walls were etched with symbols she did not understand, glowing faintly as if reacting to some unseen presence. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through the floor and into her bones. Elara felt her courage tighten like a knot in her chest. Draven stepped closer to the center of the room, where a dark mark on the floor pulsed slowly, as if alive. "This is a trace of the curse that haunts my bloodline," he explained. "It has slept for centuries, waiting for a weakness, a breach."
And now, your presence has awakened it. Alara's eyes widened.
My presence? How could that be? Because honesty, courage, and compassion can shift balance in ways the world does not expect, Draven said, his voice soft but edged with warning. Bay.
You are not like the others, Elara.
You awaken things, whether you intend to or not. The ground trembled slightly. Shadows along the walls deepened and stretched, moving in ways that made her skin prickle. Shape seemed to twist at the edge of her vision, impossible to define, and she felt the pulse of ancient magic pressing against her senses. You must stay close to me, Draven continued, his hand brushing against her arm, not touching harshly but with a weight of authority that made her shiver. Do not falter. Fear is natural, but you cannot run. Not here. Elara nodded, gripping her cloak, feeling both small and strangely courageous. Together, they moved toward the mark in the center. Draven's eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, and she realized that in moments like this, he was not merely a man. He was something more, something bound to darkness and power, yet tethered to humanity in ways she did not yet understand. Suddenly the symbols on the walls flared, and a voice whispered through the chamber, cold and ethereal. The blood awakens. The heart falters. The innocent chooses, and the end begins. Elara froze, clutching Draven's arm. What is that?" she asked. Draven's jaw tightened. It is the curse speaking. Pit, it is testing us, probing for weakness. "You must focus, Elara!" "Fear can blind you. Courage will guide you." The shadows on the walls began to coalesce, forming shapes that resembled faces, twisted and silent, yet filled with accusation and hunger. Elara's breath caught. She had never seen anything like this before. "Step forward," Draven commanded softly, placing a hand on the small of her back. "Do not let it see you as prey. See it as part of the challenge." Toes. "This is the first test." She took a trembling step forward. The shapes recoiled slightly, then advanced again, circling her like predators. Her mind raced, but she forced herself to breathe, to focus on Draven's presence beside her. "You are stronger than you know," he said quietly. "The fear you feel is real, but it is not the end." "Do you understand?" Elara nodded, tears prickling her eyes. I think so." The shadows surged forward suddenly, more forceful, and she felt an invisible push that knocked her to her knees. Panic threatened to consume her, but she remembered Draven's words. Courage, not fear. She drew a deep breath and forced herself to stand, steadying her gaze on the shapes.
"I am not afraid," she whispered, though her voice trembled.
The shadows paused, almost in recognition. Then they began to dissipate, slowly melting back into the walls. Elara collapsed against Draven's chest, trembling, her small frame shaking from both fear and relief. "You did well," he said softly, brushing damp hair from her face. "Most falter at the first sign. You endured." It was terrifying. Draven's eyes softened. "It is natural to be terrified." "That does not make you weak. It makes you alive. And alive is a gift that can change the course of fate." For a long moment they stood together, shadows lingering in the corners, but no longer threatening. Elara felt a strange bond with him, a connection that went beyond fear. She saw not just a king or a predator, but someone who bore a heavy burden. Someone who had endured centuries of loneliness and power, and now. Someone who seemed to trust her courage in a way that mattered. But the castle was never truly safe. Outside, the wind rose, carrying the scent of distant fires and unseen danger. The curse was not gone. It had only tested her first. Days passed in a blur of lessons, observation, and subtle tension. Draven continued to teach her the ways of the castle, the court, and the shadows that lived between the walls. Elara learned quickly that every gesture, every word, every glance could carry meaning. She saw the courtiers whispering in corners, the servants moving with careful precision, and the guards standing like statues of obedience and power. Draven's eyes were always on her, sometimes openly, sometimes in quiet moments when she thought he was not watching. There was a curiosity there, but also a guardedness, a wall, built over centuries that only she had begun to notice could be touched.
"You are learning quickly. he said one evening as they walked through the moonlit gardens again.
But remember, knowledge alone is not enough. You must feel. You must sense the balance of power, fear, and trust. That is how survival is achieved here. Elara nodded, feeling both overwhelmed and determined. But I want to learn, she whispered. I want to help. Draven's lips curved slightly, though the smile did not reach his eyes. Bration.
You may help, he said, but be warned.
Power attracts danger. Those who fear it, bay, and those who crave it will test us both. Her heart beat faster, not just from fear, but from something else, something unspoken between them, a connection, a tension, a pull she could not name. She realized that the bond they were forming was fragile, yet strong, tentative, yet unbreakable in ways neither of them fully understood. That night, Elara could not sleep. She wandered the corridors, the castle silent except for the distant drip of water from the roof and the occasional whisper of wind. The shadows seemed alive, twisting and shifting, hinting at secrets she had yet to uncover. She thought of the curse, of the shapes she had faced, and of Draven himself. A faint sound drew her to the east tower again, a whispering that seemed to call her name. She followed it, cautiously, unsure what she would find. In the chamber she saw the shadows stirring again, darker and more forceful than before. Desk. Draven stood in the center, watching, calm and commanding. He gestured for her to step forward. You are ready, he said simply. This time, the test is greater. Base. You must face it not only with courage, but with understanding. The curse will try to manipulate you, to turn your fears into chains. Do not let it. Don't let it. Hey! She had no choice but to trust him and herself. The shadows surged, forming figures that seemed more real, more threatening. Elara felt the invisible weight of centuries pressing against her, but she forced her mind to remain clear, focusing on Draven's presence, his guidance, and the small spark of courage she had discovered within herself. Passed, in what felt like minutes, the test pressing against her mind and spirit. She learned quickly that the curse fed on doubt and hesitation, and she fought to maintain both clarity and courage. With Draven's guidance, she navigated the unseen threat, facing shapes that whispered her fears and challenged her resolve. Finally, as the first rays of dawn brushed the towers, the shadows dissipated, leaving the chamber still and silent. Elara collapsed against the stone floor, exhausted, trembling, yet alive. Draven knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. You have survived, he said softly. And in surviving, you have proven something important. Courage, honesty, and trust are stronger than fear, stronger than the curse. But this is only the beginning, Bay. Elara looked up at him, her chest heaving. The beginning, she whispered. He nodded. The curse is not yet defeated. It has only shown its strength. There are darker trials ahead, ones that will test both of us in ways we cannot yet imagine. But you have awakened something within me as well. A hope I thought I had lost. Burns. Her heart skipped a beat, and she realized that the bond between them had grown stronger, forged in fire, fear, and trust. She no longer felt small in the castle. She felt part of it, part of him, part of something greater than herself. The castle was silent under the first light of dawn.
Bay shadows that had lingered for centuries now seemed smaller, weakened, though not gone entirely.
Elara stood at the balcony of the East Tower, the wind tugging gently at her cloak, and looked out over the city.
From up here, she could see the rooftops glistening with the morning rain, the streets quiet as if holding their breath. Draven appeared beside her, his steps soundless, his dark coat flowing behind him. He gazed down at the city with the same calm authority he always wore, yet there was a tension in him tonight that Elara had never seen before. She noticed it immediately, and her hand brushed against his sleeve.
You feel it too, she said softly. He did not look at her, only nodded.
The curse is stronger than I anticipated. It does not act openly. It waits, strikes, and feeds on hesitation. Today, it will test us both. Brask. Elara's stomach tightened. She had survived the first trials, had faced shadows and whispers, yet something about today felt heavier. The East Tower's chamber had become a focal point of the curse, a place where the ancient magic pulsed strongest. "We have faced it before," she said, trying to steady her voice. "We can face it again." Draven finally looked at her. His dark eyes, which had once been sharp and distant, softened as they met hers. "Bration, you have grown, Elara, more than you realize."
Your courage, your honesty, your willingness to trust, these things give even an immortal hope. But hope alone will not defeat what comes next.
Elara nodded, determination tightening in her chest. She was no longer the timid girl who had left a note on a scratched car. She had grown stronger, braver, and more aware of the world she had stepped into. The chamber door opened, and the air shifted instantly. Shadows coiled along the walls, forming shapes that seemed older than time itself. Figures of ancient design, their forms twisting and shifting, emerged from the darkness. They whispered her name, Draven's name, the words chilling yet compelling, as if pulling at their very souls. "This is it," Draven said quietly. "Bet. Do not let them frighten you. Remember what you learned. Fear is only a guide, not a master."
Elara stepped forward, her heart pounding.
The shadows surged, a wave of dark power that pressed against her mind. She could feel the weight of centuries, of curses, of anger and loss that had lingered in this castle long before she was born. Yet she also felt something else. Draven's presence, steady and strong beside her. A tether that kept her grounded. "Together," she whispered. "We face it together." Draven inclined his head, and they moved as one into the center of the chamber. The shadows twisted violently, reacting to their combined will. They were drawn not only to power, but to emotion, to connection. And tonight, the bond between the king and the human girl was stronger than the ancient curse had expected. Bella remembered the lessons he had taught her. Courage, clarity, trust. She focused on them, letting fear pass through her without giving it power. But the shapes lunged and swirled, but she remained steady, her eyes locked on the darkest mass at the center.
You are not alone, Draven said softly.
Breath. Feel my presence. Trust it. She did. And something remarkable happened. The shadows recoiled as if surprised, then shifted in confusion. Their whispers became chaotic, fragmented, and for the first time they did not strike with full force. Elara realized then that the curse had been feeding not only on fear but on isolation. "I am not alone," she repeated, louder this time. Breath. "We are together." Draven's hand found hers, their fingers intertwined, small but significant, a signal of trust and unity. The shadows hissed and twisted, trying to resist, but the bond between them radiated a force stronger than centuries of anger and magic. Elara raised her free hand, drawing upon her courage, her empathy, and the quiet strength she had discovered in herself. Bah! She did not attack the curse with violence. Instead, she reached out, as if inviting it to change, to understand, to release. A strange hush fell over the chamber. The shadows paused, a low whisper spreading through them like wind over stone. Bess. And then slowly they began to dissipate. The twisting, threatening forms melted into faint smoke, and the glow of the symbols on the walls dimmed. Draven exhaled, his chest rising and falling in a rare display of relief. "It listens," he said softly.
Bet. You have done what centuries of power could not achieve. You have shown it mercy and courage.
Elara sank to her knees, exhausted, yet her heart felt lighter than it had in months. I did it? You did? Draven confirmed, kneeling beside her. You faced the darkness, and you survived it. More than survived, you changed it. That is the power of human courage, something I had forgotten existed. Tears pricked her eyes, not from fear, but from the realization that she had grown beyond what she had thought possible. She had come to this castle terrified, unsure of her place, and now she had helped defeat a curse that had haunted centuries. Draven extended a hand to help her rise. "Come," he said. "There is still much to see, and much to understand. But for now, the first victory is ours." They walked together through the halls, their footsteps echoing softly. The castle seemed lighter, almost relieved, as though it too had been waiting for the bond between them to shift the balance. Servants and courtiers moved quietly, their faces respectful, aware of the change that had occurred in the Chamber of Shadows. Elara realized that her relationship with Draven had transformed as well. He was still a king, still commanding and powerful, but there was warmth now in his presence, subtle and rare. And she felt a deep connection that went beyond fear or fascination. It was trust, respect, and the quiet beginnings of something more. Days turned to weeks.
Elara learned to navigate the castle with confidence, her courage and insight respected by all who served the king.
But she continued her lessons with Draven, not as a timid girl following orders, but as a partner, learning the subtleties of power and understanding the responsibilities that came with it. Draven, too, began to change. He allowed himself moments of laughter, rare smiles that touched only his eyes, and quiet conversations with Elara in which he shared fragments of his long life.
He revealed stories of battles, betrayals, and losses, not to frighten her, but to teach her the weight of time and the cost of immortality.
One evening, as they stood on the balcony overlooking the city, the wind soft against their faces, Elara spoke softly.
"Bex, I never imagined I would be here, with you, learning this, surviving this. Oh, I never thought I could be part of something so larger than myself." Draven's hand found hers again, fingers entwining naturally. "You have changed more than the curse," he said. "You have changed me. For centuries I thought my heart could not feel in this world. Not truly. But you reminded me of what it is to hope, to trust, to care." Her cheeks warmed.
I never thought I could make a difference. Not in a place like this.
"You have," he said simply, "in more ways than you realize. You have brought life to shadows, light to darkness, and together we will face whatever comes next. Because we are no longer alone." The city stretched below them, silent and glimmering, yet filled with hidden power. The curse had been weakened, but not gone entirely.
other threats would come.
Other shadows would rise, but Ilara no longer felt fear as she had before. But she had learned courage, trust, and the strength of connection. And Draven was no longer the untouchable king of shadows. He had learned that even immortals could change, that even those who had ruled through centuries of power could find hope in human honesty and courage. They stood together in silence for a long moment, the weight of the past lifting and the promise of the future settling over them like the first rays of sunlight.
Ilara finally spoke, her voice soft but certain.
I'm glad I scratched your car. Draven's lips curved in a rare, gentle smile. So am I, he said. And in that simple exchange, the bond between them was sealed not by fear, not by power, but by trust, respect, and the quiet beginnings of love. The castle felt alive in a new way that morning, no longer haunted solely by shadows and curses. It pulsed with a promise, a potential for renewal, and a testament to the courage of a small, timid girl who had dared to leave a note. Even the wind seemed to carry it, whispering through the towers, "Courage can change destiny. Compassion can defeat shadows. And love can rewrite even the oldest curse." Ilara leaned against Draven, and he placed his arm around her shoulders. Together they looked out at the city, ready to face whatever the future might bring. They had survived darkness, defeated a curse, and discovered the power of connection and trust. For the first time, both felt something that neither immortality nor power could give alone: hope.